simplifying a rational expression with radicals. And so you can see I've got a pretty complicated looking problem here. And this would probably be out of an Algebra 2 class. But we're going to solve it quickly and easily with prime factor tiles. We're going to take every factor that's not under the radical and put that off to the left side. So we have a 3 in the numerator of the first fraction. We have a 2 upstairs in the numerator of our second fraction or radical expression. And we've got a 5 in the denominator downstairs. 5 under the radical upstairs, 3 under the radical downstairs. Over here 15 will be a 3 times a 5, and then downstairs we have a 2. And so this is the same problem expressed just a little bit differently. We've done the multiplication. Numbers outside the radical multiply together. Numbers under the radical symbols multiply together. First thing we look at is our fraction to the left with no radical, and there are no common factors to the numerator and denominator to simplify. Now we look at the fraction to the right. So we're not worried about the root symbol now. We're just seeing, can we simplify the fraction? And sure enough, we see there's a 3 common to the numerator and denominator. And 3 divided by 3 is 1, and that cancels right out of our problem. Now we have a numerator that shows 5 times 5. Well, a 5 times a second 5 is just 5 squared. We take the square root of 5 squared, and we're left with a 5. It comes outside the radical. Now we've got a 2 in the denominator here. We need to put a 1 upstairs. So we're taking the square root of 1/2. Now if we look at what happened outside, now we have a common factor to the numerator and denominator. 5 divided by 5 is 1. Now at this point we see that there's a 2 in the denominator of this fraction that's under a radical. And you cannot have a fraction under a radical, or you cannot have a radical symbol in the denominator. And so that would give you an irrational denominator, and we have to rationalize it. So the only way I can rationalize this denominator is that 2 that's under the radical inside. Well, I've got to make that a 2 squared to get it outside. And so we just go back to what we know about equivalent fractions. And I can multiply 1/2 times 2/2. Now what that'll give me is an equivalent fraction, 4/4. And 1/2 and 4/4 have the same value. But now I've got a perfect square downstairs. I've got 2 squared. And the square root of 2 squared is just 2. Upstairs, 1 times 2. We don't need that 1 anymore. Just 2. And outside, 2 divided by 2 is 1. And this problem simplifies to 3 radical 2.